Welcome everyone to the Women's Empower Network with another amazing interview. And I'm so excited to introduce my friend Sandy. Her and I both went through life coaching training together. And she has some interesting stories about when things weren't so easy for women. You know, now the world is open to us, but she remembers a time where there were some restrictions. And I was wondering if we could start there and you share that.
Okay. Well, my husband really was my big brother's best friend. So I knew him from fifth grade. But I was always the little sister. And so my mother decided, for whatever reason, decided to move us to Hawaii in my senior year of high school. So we were over there for a little more than a year. And when we came back to Odessa, Texas, I was now a woman. And my big brother's best friend, whom I always loved, uh, became my boyfriend. And I was attending college at an all-women's school, which you don't have very many of those anymore, in San Antonio. And he was going to Texas A&M, which at the time was a military academy, much like West Point. When you went to Texas A&M, you graduated immediately and went into the military. So anyway, we wanted to get married while we were both in college. So we did, against everybody's recommendations. But at the time, they would admit women to Texas A&M only if you were married to a student or if you were a daughter of a professor. So I was married to a student, so I got to go to Texas A&M. So I had transferred from Our Lady of the Lake to Texas A&M. And quite frankly, Texas A&M was much more difficult than my liberal college had been because it was an engineering college mainly. So my husband has a degree in electrical engineering, plus a few other degrees. But anyway, he graduated from Texas A&M while I was still in college. And we then immediately went into the Air Force, and he was stationed at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. Fortunately, they had an on-base program for the military where, mainly men could go and advance their degrees. Well, they let women in. So it was Chapman University, and I was able to get my math degree at Chapman University while also becoming a mother. I had my first child while we were at A&M, and I graduated while I was pregnant with my second child. So after 4 years at Vandenberg Air Force Base, we were transferred to Hawaii. So I was back in Hawaii, but it was beautiful. We were there for 4 years, and there I had my third child. But life was difficult for me because my husband, it was during the Vietnam War, and my husband was deployed most of the time, quite frankly, more than 6 months out of the year. So it was difficult raising 3 children, and I was kind of going crazy. I went home and visited my mother for a month, and she said, well, Sandy, why don't you go back to school? Because I love studying. So when I went back after visiting my mother, I decided to get my master's degree in public health. So it was great because there was a nursery on base that I could put the children in, and 2 of them were one of them was in school when I started. So, and fortunately, I got a, my father had died in the Air Force. So my tuition was paid for. And also the university gave me a $200 a month stipend, which would help with everything. So I didn't have to pay anything, and I actually earned money by going to college, and I got my master's in public health before we were transferred to San Antonio and back in Texas. So that's kind of my background. I got my first degree in math, and then I studied business Oh, I got my second degree in public health, epidemiology, and biostatistics. And then I studied business. And then back in San Antonio, I got a master's degree in theology. And while we were in Maryland, we decided, because my husband retired from the military and he was spending most of his time in Georgia. And he was also a pilot, so he would fly his plane back and forth. But at that time, my brother was still living in Texas and he was the only living relative I had. So I really wanted to be back in Texas. We're from Texas. So I found out through my brother. At the time, by the way, I was working as a director at the Sylvan Learning Centers in Baltimore. But I found out that the Sylvan Learning Centers that were in Central Texas were for sale. So I decided to buy them. By the way, I was also studying for my master's degree in business at Johns Hopkins. I love studying. So I moved back to Texas and my husband commuted to Georgia for a while and then joined me in the business. And we own 3 Sylvan Learning Centers and I loved it. And we invested in more Sylvan Learning Centers in California. And so we ended up with 16 Sylvan Learning Centers. But also, I'm very computer oriented. I studied computer science too. And so I was struggling with not having software to manage my student database. So my son was getting his degree at Texas A&M in computer science. So he came and joined me in the business and developed software. And we, to run the businesses. And we then started licensing the software to all the other Sylvan Learning Centers.
Wow.
We eventually sold everything and retired. But after retiring, I got bored. And so I taught theology for 10 years. And then I became coach. So that's kind of my background.
That is so fascinating. Oh my gosh. A woman after my own heart. Do you think your success was because you had people around you that believed in you and supported you?
Definitely. My husband always believed in me and always supported me whenever I was getting degrees, because I also got a doctorate while I was here in Waco. I got our doctorate in church faith studies. But he's always supported me in whatever endeavor I was in. Now, I always discussed it with him before I began it, of course. And he's just very supportive. And he also likes to study. He has a couple of master's degrees. So between the two of us, we have 7 degrees. So we just, he's just a wonderful man. I can't explain it, but he is very supportive. And even like now with this interview, he made sure that the computers were up and the lighting was working right and all that kind of stuff. So having him has been wonderful because I've been able to, go do things that women normally don't do. Being in business by myself. Oh, we also had a coffee house too, another business. So it has been an exciting thing. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to become a life coach. So I could help other women achieve their dreams. But I realized that part of the problem that women have is managing finances. So I decided to become a finance coach. So now I'm a financial counselor, and that really fits well with my background in business. And also, when you have a master's in statistics, it helps that too. So I do all kinds of things with the computer. I'm really like quite adept at the computer. And if I ever have a question, I can ask my son or my husband, and they help me. So it has been great.
You have your own team in your own back pocket.
I do. And it's wonderful. All my family, my son, my daughters, my grandchildren, I have 7 grandchildren. Oh, 8. Now, a new one just came in the picture. And they all live here in Waco, with the exception of one grandson who lives in Austin. So it's wonderful. I've got this great, wonderful family all around me.
And that's so important, because even if you don't have a supportive family, support is really key, I think. And
It
really,
is. It is. And I belong to a women's group at church. It's called Dynamic Seniors. And that too has been very supportive and a lot of fun, because we go and do things together. And we study things together. And I think when you can have other women that you can collaborate with, it really is wonderful. It makes life a lot less stressful.
yes, definitely. So in your new career as a financial life coach, do you just focus on women in business, or do you help individuals as well?
Individuals and couples, married couples really need a lot of help, because they tend to um, have conflicts over money. And so helping married couples get through that, that's where my life coaching skills come in as well, because they really need to help each other. You can't do it by yourself when you're married. You have to have the support of the wife or husband to manage your finances well. And it is really rather easy to manage finances and become financially independent of any credit cards. We are so dependent on credit cards nowadays. We need to get rid of all the credit cards. We need to have money in the bank when there's an emergency. We need to have money in the bank for when we retire, and are able to do the things that we want to do when we retire, whether it's travel, take care of grandkids, whatever it might be. It's been wonderful that I can send my grandkids to summer camps that their parents might not be able to at this time. Summer camps cost a lot of money nowadays. And then also save for their college. I like being able to do that. So I want to help other families be able to do those things. And just to be independent of all credit cards. Why are we paying anywhere from 11 to 25% of whatever we buy, we're giving away? Why are we doing that? We don't need to be doing that. We can become financially independent and wealthy, no matter what our state in life is. So I like to help people do that and not give away their money to credit card companies.
I can see you're passionate about that.
Yes,
Two-
I am.
Two things come to mind. I remember my first husband and I had very, very different financial habits or
Oh, yes.
perspectives. And I remember it took us a while to work out a system that worked for us. And for us, it was like every 6 months we switched who managed the money. And we did it quite differently. And the rule was we couldn't critique the other one, because if it was working and we were saving money and putting money away, then how we balanced the books or how we did that, we had to learn to stay in our own lane, you know?
Oh, how interesting.
It was. But so you can help couples like work out their differences and find a middle ground that works for them.
Yes, absolutely.
And
It
then
doesn't. Go ahead. Go
and
ahead.
then the other thought that came to mind was you know, if you're working a job and you want to be an entrepreneur and there's more month than money, you can help people find ways to make all that work.
Yes. In business, I found out that I did not budget well for business. And so I developed a cash flow model and budget that could be used to help in my businesses as well as to help other businesses, small businesses, not, big ones. But so even, we had a group of Sylvan Learning Centers, so I guess you could call us big in one sense. But we weren't a publicly traded company, and I don't work with them. I want to work with small businesses, especially women who run small businesses. They usually need more help than men. And I want to help them become independent and strong financially, as well as emotionally.
That is beautiful, because I know even for myself, I mean, if you've always worked for somebody else and you got a paycheck, I mean, it's a whole different world to manage your money. And, I'm still learning myself about how to do the entries in my books and, how to pay myself and all of
Mhm.
those things. I need to book a session with you.
I'll be glad to help.
Well, that's great. Well, are there any parting words that you want to share with the group?
Well, I have a website called Coach for Joy. And the reason it's joy is because, it's not just happiness. You want continual peace and happy in your life. And joy is that. Joy is where you can live and not feel all the day-to-day stress. To be able to manage, you're going to have stress in your life, but to be able to manage that stress and still feel at ease and love yourself as well as others. So I call it Coach for Joy because I want people to find joy, not just happiness, but that peace that comes with managing yourself and also forming your religious life so that you know where you're going with our Lord as well as with yourself. You need to have that connection. And like I said, I have that connection with dynamic seniors in my church. Phenomenal. But I have that connection with my church, with my minister, that give me that help when I need it. So if I'm going through a stress, like my daughter had a serious medical issue this past year that has caused lots of stress, but I've had people around me to help me through that stress. So we need that supporting network. So not just the know-how that you can gain from Coach for Joy, for example, but also the network that can help you get through life's issues.
That's so beautiful. And I am so excited to reconnect with you. I so
I
enjoyed being your partner in our training and what you're doing now. And if you want to get a hold of Sandy and get, do you do a free consultation?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. And you can schedule it on my website, which I said is coachforjoy.com. So easy to remember. My last name is not easy to spell, but But I do have a personal email. It's Sandy at, and then it's my last name. We have our own domain, which is hapenney.com. And Hapenney is hard to spell. It's H-A-P, not Y, Hapenney. So if anybody wants to email me, it's Sandy@Coach4Joy or Sandy@hapenney.com.
Well, we'll be sure to put that in the comments too, so they don't forget. And again, thank you so much for being part of this with us.
Oh, I'm so glad I could. Thank you for interviewing me.